Yeah.
So at that point, I guess that's but he's better than the Democrats, better than the Republicans, better than RFK on that. He's better. Not going to fund them.
He's saying something better.
He's saying something better.
They're all, it's like all the betters, just to qualify this, are what people are saying. Not
saying,
anything they
not
did.
what they did. So I don't
maybe
think
he would, maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. But as far as sayings, I would say he did the best of anyone you talk to. Certainly better. Certainly, you see the difference between a guy who has a shot at anything and Cornel West, and or even like Marianne Williamson, who has gotten more. I've noticed learned more stuff since arguing with you.
Of course.
Yeah, because they have to go. They got to look at it. He did a deep dive on January 6th. There's no way he don't know about the stuff that goes on over there.
Yeah.
There's no way he doesn't.
If he knows what's going on January 6th, if he sees what's going on in Ukraine, he knows what's going on in Israel, Palestine, and Gaza, and even what's going on in the West Bank, right? And so, that was a great point you made when he said, the bigger human rights thing that's is happening to the Uyghurs. There's 1 million people in a concentration camp. No, there's 2 million Palestinians in a concentration camp.
The Palestinians don't have jobs making Nikes. They have 60% unemployment.
That's right. and they're just like, and the Israelis are counting their calories, just like you said. That's real German shit.
And also funding Hamas the whole time.
And that's the point I wanted to get to too. But he only gave us 35 minutes. I didn't have to. I wanted to get to that. I wanted to get to the head of their Secret Service just admitted that they funded Hamas because the Palestinian Liberation Organization is committed to being nonviolent, and that I'm going to play it in a second, and that they actually set all this up so they could do this violence.
Well, he said all he was going to say on that, and
yeah,
I am impressed by this. Is like
his press with his politicking, but not his position.
Well, I don't. What
I mean, he was slick. He got through that.
Okay, if I had to think about what his position is based on what he said, it's like, well, I'm not paying for any of these people's stuff, so that problem will solve itself. Don't worry. I can't say that, obviously, because AIPAC, I'm running for president of America, as I said, which means there ain't no way I'm going to call out Israel doing any crimes, because you're not going to be president of America calling out that kind of shit. You're going to be president. Like, I took it like, hey, those tweets I made about it's divine and this and that, that's all the funding I'm going to give to Israel is the promise, right? Like, I'm going to say those things to them and cut off their money, which, okay, that sounds good. I mean, it's crazy what's going on right now, but I guess what can you do? And, let's move on to another one of my things, how I hate wokeness. We all hate wokeness, dude. We all hate it. I know, Woke Inc., you wrote a book. I was dealing with that shit 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, all the CEOs could have wrote a goddamn book. At the time, could have been like, fuck this. And when all these people that wrote a book just now, but I'm not even holding it against them. What it was an indicator to me of, it shows you where the entire thing is at. Because him being one of the better ones at talking about it, where it's not an absolute insult to your intelligence, the way you're getting politicked. The rest of them are like, oh, that's conspiracy talk. That's a Putin, like an absolute insult to your faculties of thought on every level. His was a little bit more respectful of a bullshitting because he's like, and I'm gonna cut funds, so you're smart enough to put that together. What that means. We don't have to keep going on about this.
If the United States did cut the funding, and if the United States was not backing this ethnic cleansing in Gaza, that would not be happening, and Israel would have to become a good neighbor. But because the United States backs them and backs them with our military and backs them with our billions, they don't have to be a good neighbor. They can go in and do an ethnic cleansing. They can go in and they can bring suitcases full of cash and give it to Hamas, and so they could divide and conquer. So they're funding a terrorist organization that they say is a terrorist organization. By the way, aren't the Palestinians allowed to fight back against occupation? Of course they are.
I said people don't know what that means. They think occupation means the country of Israel doesn't have a right to exist. Oh, they're occupying Israel. No, they don't understand that it means
they're
Gaza.
Controlling Gaza. They're controlling it.
Right. No, people do not understand that.
They're doing a siege warfare on Gaza, which is a war crime. You're not allowed to do that. And they're controlling the water, they're controlling the food, they're controlling the electricity, they're controlling the internet, they're controlling everything. And that is supposed to be a war crime.
I'm still waiting for a solution from one of the presidential candidates
to
give you a solution. Where is the solution?
Why can't you do a one-state solution again? I mean, clearly...
Because here's why. because the Palestinians would outnumber the Jews, and then it wouldn't be a Jewish state anymore, and they want an ethno-Jewish state. Yeah. That's what they want.
I mean, will they outnumber them? It looks like
yes. That's why they won't do that.
So
and you can't give them
replacement. They feel
then it has to be an apartheid state. So they have to keep them second-class citizens, because if they get full right, then they'll be able to vote their way into everything, and then the Jews don't control Israel anymore.
I mean, look, if America was backing, hey, it's going to be a democracy and everybody gets rights, and then we'll come in and give you aid if someone is not abiding by that.
Yeah,
that would be like a better.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen.
Well, because the plan was all about we need our
so I think
carrier.
I think the only. I mean, from my limited knowledge of this, and my knowledge, to be honest, only started when this conflict started. I didn't know much about Palestine-Israel conflict. I knew that the Palestinians were being occupied and they were oppressed, but for the rest of it, I didn't know. I didn't know about how it started. I didn't know. But now everybody's getting, just like those videos we show of the Jewish woman who was a Zionist until she found out what it meant. And
right. Or they shot 3 hostages, the IDF, who had waving a white flag.
White flag. We're going to cover that today.
Great job, IDF.
And so now, because of this, because of what Israel's doing right now, everybody's becoming very educated on what the hell is going on, and I'm one of them. So I know a lot more than I did 2 months ago, for sure. A lot more.
Right.
And
well, now I look at his tweets about, like, if they want to go kill Hezbollah, go do it. Now, when I think about it, it's almost a mocking tone, because even the stuff I wrote was like, well, they're not going to do it. They can't do it. They literally can't defeat Hezbollah. They can't defeat that. Oh, I see what you're saying. Go ahead, go beat them. We're not paying you. That's like, which I would agree with him saying that, if that's what it means. I don't believe, and there's not anything against him personally. None of them, I believe,
is going to stop funding Israel. You don't believe he would stop funding Israel?
Never mind that. Any of the
I have a hard time believing that also.
Look, any of the things, and it's not even because I don't think maybe he intends to. He looks like a guy who's a good talker.
He's a good talker.
But the whole thing, they're not going to let you. I like, the real thing I want to ask is, how in the hell, what alliance did you make that you think you're going to be permitted to cause any change to this maniac empire? A lot more than you have tried. Now, he is like he seems smart as hell, and he does what do you call it? Like, politic well, but you're one dude, and you got to build a coalition of people that also want to dismantle it. And I don't see that happening. I see, at best, having a few people that are working against you that are supposedly working for you at all times. The translator thing you were telling me about, Trump didn't want to bring a translator to talk to Putin. They go, see, he doesn't want them. Like, you're saying they're like a spy? Like, what are you going to, what is a president really even going to do at this point? It has to be an overhaul of 20 things. It's going to be a few years with actual collapse, and he's like the beginning of people coming in saying things that are openly true and not telling you you're crazy.
So, I mean, there's the permanent state, there's the deep state, and so the
shadow government owns the deep state.
That's right. And Israel's part of the deep state, by the way.
Yeah,
so
they're not the shadow government, anti-Semites. They are just part of our deep state, Mossad, and of course the great Jeffrey Epstein, who died for Israel's right to defend itself. And all of you who support Hamas are spitting on his on his sacrifice.
Okay. So what I wanted to show him was this. I wanted to show him that here's Bibi Netanyahu saying anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support. So that means he doesn't want a 2-state solution right there.
Yeah.
That's Netanyahu saying, I don't want a 1-state solution, and we certainly don't want a 2-state solution.
The great David Ben-Gurion did not want that as well. A partitioning, he did not want that. It's never been a thing.
He wanted to just get rid of them, right?
Think of it like the Minsk Accords. No intention of ever honoring that idea. That's to tell rubes back in America.
So here's what Bibi says. Anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas. This is part of our strategy. Our strategy is to divide and conquer and prop up the militant wing of the Palestinians so that they will actually fight back against us, and then we can use it as a pretext to wipe those people off Gaza. and the West Bank, which is exactly what they're doing. And so, and how else do they do it? Israel drove suitcases stuffed with cash into Gaza to keep Hamas in power, because the PLO actually fights against the militant wing of the Palestinians, and they don't want them. They actually want they want them to be militarized. They want them to be attacking Israel, so they can use it as a pretext to do exactly what they're doing right now: ethnic cleanse Gaza and the West Bank. That's what they want. And so here, Arnaud Bertrand tweeted out, "This might be the best explanation I've heard for why October 7th, and surprisingly, it comes from Ami Ayelan, former head of Shin Bet."
Oh, Shin Bet's the other one. That's right.
Israel's Secret Service and Commander-in-Chief of the Navy. Listen to what he said of why October 7th happened. Here we go.
And the first and probably most important is the political paradigm. The political paradigm was that since we cannot solve the conflict between us and Palestinians, all what we did failed. So the only way to do it now is managing the conflict. So the policy was managing the conflict and not to try to solve it.
Not to try to solve the conflict. We're going to manage it. So what do you think that means? That means what they're doing right now, ethnically cleanse. But here we go. I'll let him say it.
And in order to do it, we had to do something which we call divide and rule. Meaning we have to make sure that Palestinians will not have a unified leadership, to make sure that we should always be able to say that nobody to talk with, nothing to talk about. And
so that's what you always hear Zionists saying, that, oh, we'd like to make a peace deal. There's nobody to make a deal with. There's nobody. Who do we going to make? So he's just saying they set it up so that they could say that. Okay.
To do it, we had to make sure that Hamas will go on controlling Gaza, and the Palestinian Authority, supported by Fatah, will go on leading Palestinians in the West Bank, and they will create a conflict. You know, they will, in a way, almost fight each other. And
Great job.
And in order to do it, we had to do all what we did. Enhancing or assisting Hamas, transferring money, enabling people to work in Israel, etc., etc. And probably without our intention, we found ourselves strengthening Hamas and weakening Palestinian Authority. Once we did it, and what we saw on the Palestinian street, that Hamas is getting support, Palestinian support, because they became the only group or administration in the eyes of the Palestinians who fought against the Israeli occupation and in order to achieve Palestinian freedom. So
he's saying that they forced a situation where most of the Palestinians would support Hamas because they were the only group that were willing to fight against the occupation. And Israel set it up that way. Okay, so now here we go.
On the other hand, Fatah and Palestinian Authority were perceived by Israeli collaborators because until today, they refuse formally to use violence. And although they are very weak, they still are trying.
So he's saying, and so they set it up to where the Palestinian Liberation Organization would be seen as collaborators with Israel because they refuse to use violence to fight against their occupation. So this is all set up by the hand of Israel, backed by the world's biggest superpower, the United States.
Hey, it didn't really backfire because now that they support Hamas, you can ethnically cleanse them.
That's exactly what they wanted.
Probably it was inadvertent. That's what he said, probably.
Yeah.
Probably?
Probably? Yeah, I know.
It shouldn't be definitely?
It's definite.
We had no idea this would happen. We're just dumb.
This is exactly what they wanted. That's why else would you do this? Why else would you prop up Hamas? Why else would you divide them? So exactly so that they could do this. Here we go.
From time to time to fight Palestinian terror, especially in Jenin, Nablus, wherever they can. They cannot do much because, as I said, today, and this is a great change, big change from the 90s. Between 70 to 80% of the Palestinians are supporting Hamas only because Hamas is perceived as the one who fight for its freedom.
There you go. And so
70 because they're genocidal.
So right. So only 70. So and he's saying how the Palestinian Liberation actually fights against what he calls terrorists in Jenin, and so whenever the Palestinians fight back, the Palestinian Liberation tries to tamp that down, and that's why 70 to 80% of the Palestinian people now support Hamas, because they're the only ones that are fighting for the Palestinians. They're the only ones willing to push back against the occupation, and they set it up. And who is that? That comes from the head of Shin Bet, Israel's Secret Service, and the commander-in-chief of their navy. That's who's saying that.
If you're going to pay for terrorists, like I bring this up to friends who, it's funny when I bring the thing up and they can't refute that it's true that what Bibi said. This I've never seen before, but he's saying the same thing, just better. They all have to acknowledge it, and they go, and it's funny to watch people's face like, well, they thought it was a strategy. Okay, let's stick with that right there. Great job with your strategy. And also, okay, Hamas is evil. Wouldn't someone that funds Hamas be even more evil?
Right?
Because that's an evil group that I would never send money to or support. And by the way, no one supports, except Israel. No one at Harvard where the students don't feel safe. Did they have a sign? Did they say don't kill all the civilians? That's not really support or doing anything. Sending money to them for many years.
That's supporting
That's support. And you fucked yourself, and now you're mad at other people pointing it out. Oh, I don't feel safe. How did you feel safe doing that?
Very well said. This idea that the students protesting on college campuses in America are supporting Hamas.
They did a die-in.
They're not doing anything. They're not actually supporting them. They're doing a protest that's going to have no effect. You know who is supporting them? The United States government. They're supporting Hamas. You know who's supporting Hamas? Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Their government is not only they're materially supporting them with suitcases full of cash. Suitcases full of cash, as reported by the New York frickin' Times.
And then mowing down their own hostages, and then idiots.
They killed their own hostages.
Yeah,
okay.
Wow, what a safe place to be. Thank God it's there, huh?
This idea that I support Hamas or Kurd or college students support Hamas. No, the people who support Hamas is Benjamin Netanyahu, the Likud party, and Israel government.
I've never been into these guys. Or ISIS or Al-Qaeda. It turns out my government and our best pals are the big supporters.
That's right. Okay. But Vivek, very... he's got his talking points down.
He knows a secret plan.
He knows how to get around this. Well, his secret plan is he won't fund Israel, but I just don't buy that. I think if the United States wasn't funding Israel and we didn't promise them the support of our military, this conflict wouldn't be happening, and Israel would be forced to be a good neighbor to their Arab states neighbors, but they're not. So now they're the terrorists, just like the United States is the world's terrorist. Israel's the terrorist of the Middle East. They are. Okay, over to Steph.
We terrorize it too.
Oh, sure.
All right. Thank you. Bing. Camera 4. All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking at this and you want to know when our dates are for any of the shows, you go to jimmydore.com and look for the dates in Europe. That's happening in April, jimmydore.com. All right. Where in West E lives on, Vivek was tap dancing as fast as he could. Nevertheless, he's a Zionist cuck. Vivek clearly supports genocide.
Is that, and stop. Like, what are you going to single him out? Keep in mind, there's no one else you could go for who's going to. I think he actually did the best. It's really more of an indicator of what a fucked country this is.
Right. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you for weighing in on that. I appreciate that.
Stop saying cuck, too.
Vivek clearly supports genocide. End of story. Vivek took a needs-based student loan when he had $2 million in the bank. He also pushed failed dementia drug for big profits. He's an opportunist at best, in my opinion. Ibkat.
So he's qualified to be president of this country.
He definitely sounds like he's qualified to be president.
He actually was supposed to be in studio, and I think the conversation was supposed to be longer than just 35 minutes. So that changed the course of this this interview, and hopefully he will be back, because those are great ideas to have a conversation about.
I had so many things that I wanted to ask him about, hyping that Alzheimer's drug to get the stock of his company up and then selling it, and the whole thing. There's a million things I wanted to get to ask him. I had 35 minutes. I thought I used it as good as I can. That's as good as I am. If you don't like it, then
look,
that's just me being. Yeah. That's not as good as you want me to be.
But the thing is, all you're going to get out of any of these interviews, all anyone's going to get out of it, is you're going to get to see how these people react when they're confronted with just some questions they wouldn't normally be asked, and see how they react. That's all you get out of it. You're talking to politicians. You're not going to get like the best of Chris Hedges from any of these people. You're going to get like, okay, let's see what your thing is and what you'll maybe do. And then I guess you pick out what your best case scenario is. I don't know what the best case scenario is right now for president, by the way. I really couldn't tell you.
Here we go. IDF kills 3 shirtless Israeli hostages waving a white flag calling for help in Hebrew. So if they're going to slaughter their own hostages, I mean, the Israeli hostages, what do you think they're doing to Palestinians? Palestinians have no chance. Here's the story. Ready? 3 Israeli hostages who were shot. Oh, do I have? No. 3 Israeli hostages who were shot and killed Friday by Israeli forces were shirtless, and one of them was waving a white flag of surrender. And who said that? An Israeli military official said that. 2 hostages were killed immediately. The third was wounded and yelling for help in Hebrew before being shot again.
Yeah, they're that not good at it at the IDF, which I was told was amazing. But they're not. It's a trick. There's an old Bible story about, the word shibboleth.
Yeah, I've heard it. I don't know what it means.
Okay, so the way Israel in the Bible, I can't remember who they had to slaughter, but the people were pretending to be Hebrews to get by, and so their test was go pronounce shibboleth, and the people from whatever their adversarial tribe was couldn't say sh sounds.
Oh, really?
Or something. So when they couldn't pronounce it right, they would know and kill them. That's an old Bible story. That's where we get shibboleth from. But it's interesting, like there's no shibboleth that they could have said or pronounced a Hebrew word properly. We'll know you're Hebrew.
3 hostages were identified, and the IDF has identified a nearby building marked with SOS and help 3 hostages. So the hostages put SOS, help, 3 hostages. They wrote that on a building. IDF still slaughtered their own hostages. 2 days earlier, but had believed it. They thought it was a trap. Reactions around the world Saturday morning were incredulous. Sarah Leah Whitson, executive director of Dawn, tweeted, thousands of Palestinians have described how Israel fires at unarmed people who pose no threat, but only when it happens to Israelis do people believe it. We wrote a report some years ago specifically on the topic of Israel shooting at Gazans waving white flags. They shoot aid, they shoot Red Cross workers, they shoot nurses, they shoot people shoot people in wheelchairs, they shoot kids, they shoot everybody. The Israeli Information Center for Human Rights and the Occupied Territories tweeted, "It is prohibited by international humanitarian law and basic moral principles to shoot people who yielded and carry a white flag, regardless whether they're combatants or not, regardless of their nationality and religion." Owen Jones, a columnist for The Guardian, tweeted, 3 obviously unarmed shirtless Israeli hostages yelling in Hebrew, waving a white flag, were shot dead by Israeli troops. Palestinian civilians don't stand a chance. Hundreds of relatives and some... maybe it's wishful thinking on my part, but I get a sense in my bones that this is not going to turn out well for Israel in the long run. This is not.
You don't think so?
I'm just telling you, this is not going to be good.
Because they're not going to. They're mad. So they're not dividing the people over, who do you like better, the Arab side or the Israeli side? Israelis now are split.
That's right.
Because the weird hybridizing of ultra-religious with ultra-religious Zionists who don't like each other, with secular, with all that, and no constitution. and no rights, and the guys taking over their government, and now this, and those guys took their shirt off to show they don't have a bomb on them, is my guess, right?
Yeah, that's why
so
they're
like,
that.
we got to do, because they know, that
They'll
means
shoot
they
it.
know they'll shoot us.
So the Israelis who are hostages of Hamas know that if they don't take their shirt off, they're going to get shot. They know it. So they took their shirt off and they got shot anyway.
IDF's like,
they know the IDF shoots unarmed people, even if they're waving white flags. They know all that stuff.
They go, hey, should we call it a firebombing? Like, no, they might be our people. Let's just shoot them.
Let's just shoot them.
No, don't go crazy. We don't know that they're Arabs.
Hundreds of relatives and supporters of hostages still held by Palestinian militants demonstrated outside the Israeli Ministry of Defense in Tel Aviv on Friday night. Insane. 3 hostages were shirtless, waving white flags when they were shot. One of them managed to escape while shouting for help in Hebrew, but our soldiers still chased and executed him. This is... Caitlin Johnstone says, Israeli forces killed escaped Israeli hostages who were waving a white flag because they mistook them for Palestinian civilians waving a white flag. Another category of person whom Israeli forces routinely kill. So that's their defense is, oh, I thought they were Palestinians waving a white flag. You're not supposed to kill anybody waving a white flag.
But that's how they trick us, so we're allowed to break the rules. As the great Ben Gurion said, better to shoot the guy first and then apologize when it was a white flag and your own guy.
Max Blumenthal says, Israel invaders recently massacred Palestinian families sheltering in a North Gaza school, holding a white flag on a stick. Western media ignored the monstrous crime and still refused to delve into the mega scandal of Israel's massacre of its own citizens on October 7th with heavy weapons. I would like to get Vivek's take on this.
About how they were shooting their own people like idiots on October. Wasn't 7 hours before they got there. No, they got 7 hours of work done. Just wasn't very good work.
Breaking huge protests against the Israeli government in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, and other cities. The protesters demand that the hostages be returned home, and some are demanding the fail of the entire Israeli government. The fail?
The cabinet. Fall of the cabinet.
Oh, the fall. I'm sorry. And the fall, that's fall of the entire...
The fail happened already.
The fail already happened, right. This comes after the Israeli military admitted to killing 3 Israeli hostages despite flying when here's the protest, that they're protesting over it. So
this is why,
let the record reflect that the mass murder of 10,000 Palestinian children was not the cause of these protests. What caused these protests to erupt in Israel's deeply racist society was the killing by Israel's military of 3 Israelis waving a white flag. They don't give a shit about the 10,000.
But whatever gets you to the thing's got to change, because obviously they hate them, so it was never going to change. It's an unworkable system like actual apartheid in South Africa was.
Right.
It ain't going to change until the actual people, even if they're racist, which I'm sure many are, they have to be like, this isn't working for anybody. That's your only step to it changing. So like, okay, yeah, no, we know, I know, the record reflects that. You should be encouraged that this is happening because that's the only way it's going to change.
Well, there's $500 billion in oil and gas associated with Israel taking over Gaza and the West Bank. So I think that they're going to keep pushing and pushing until, this is going to be, there's no way. Again, I'm bad at making predictions. People know way more about this situation than I do, but I just get this sense that this is going to turn out not only not the way Israel wants it to, but way worse than they want it to.
Well, it already has been.
An Israeli think tank did a study, and of all the protests around the world over Israel-Palestine, 95% of the protests worldwide were in favor of Palestine.
I never heard of that before.
There's no way but maybe you weren't here the day we covered that.
No. I mean, but that happening before.
No.
Now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No. This is. They're not.
I didn't know anything about it until very recently, and
just like Vivek couldn't bullshit our audience about his. I mean, that's not really saying that I'm not the president of Israel, I'll just stop giving them money and wash my. You can't wash your hands of this. That was kind of a morally cowardice kind of a position to take. But again, better than all the people running. Isn't that wild?
You cannot take a moral position and be president of the United. Who in their fever dreams thinks that a good man is going to be or woman is going to be the president?
I know.
What do you think the job is? It's not being good.
I mean, Cornel West has a much better position on Israel-Palestine, but he's not really running for president.
It's
so that's I'm saying of all the people actually running for president,
he and Vivek insulted my intelligence the least of any of the people you've had on. And yes, that is a moral cowardice thing, but it was the least insulting one of all of them. It was the least insulting one because there was somebody.
It is a solution to the problem. If America did stop backing this and stop funding it,
I don't know how he pulled that off, but
it would end.
No one else. That's letting you know. Well, I think we could cut this stuff off, and then I could, because politically, how in the hell would you say this and become president? How would you?
He's not running for president. He's I think
vice president.
Vivek is running for vice president. Don't you think?
Yeah, and then because a lot of stuff is changing, it ain't going to be. It's a few years before you see really where it comes out. I mean, look how long it took for 9/11 to get us here, like 20 years or more.
Yeah, right.
So this is actually pretty accelerated, the change going on, and it's not stupid corporate. Woke, again, he's right about that, although I'm not impressed that you think woke. Yeah. I always thought it sucked.
Okay. All right, over to Steph.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Blank state, please ask Vivek.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit